Look, buddy, we're into the new year. You gotta do some self-improvement. Everybody needs to. And in your case, stop flying into buildings and everything. You're starting to scare people. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. Once again, we're going to wrap up looking at some of the combiner components, especially those that we reviewed the originals earlier on last year. So this will be the last one of those. This is Fireflight. This is, of course, his Age of the Primes release. And right here, we'll bring out his Generation 1 counterpart. For a little bit of background data on Fireflight, the original one was released back in 1986. Fireflight is the most reckless of the Aerialbots due to the fact that he enjoys viewing the scenery at 10,000 feet or higher. And which, that's all fine and dandy, but it also means he's not paying attention to where he's going. So he often collides into buildings or other aircraft, including his fellow Aerialbots. So he is one reckless character in the air. His original file card emphasized that by stating that if they needed a pilot's license to fly, he'd have never gotten his. But still, this is the modern version of Fireflight. He's partially inspired, takes some inspiration from the 1980s cartoon, since he is sort of based on the animation model, as well as the Generation 1 toy. And he will, of course, be a limb to Superion, since he's sold as a deluxe class figure. They're intending him to be used anywhere, although it's somewhat implied that Fireflight will be an arm to Superion. Which is interesting due to the fact that the G1 instructions clearly had him as a leg. But the idea behind the Scramble City type combiners, that was a combiner where it had one large central figure being the body and the other members of the team being limbs, was that they could be interchanged and they would unlock different abilities depending on the configuration they were in. Of course, the American media didn't play this up at all in any of the Transformers material, not in any books or comic books or even the cartoon. None of them played it up. The feature was pretty well used in the Japanese anime of Scramble City due to the fact that it put a lot of attention on these combiners. Superion, Defensor, Menasor, and Bruticus. The only one in the American media that played it up a bit was Piranacon, the Seacons, due to the fact that they included an extra figure, and all the small guys could transform into different guns. So, if you had all six, Piranacon could have an extra guy be a weapon, be an interesting weapon. And since all five of them became different types of guns, yeah, different options. But before we get too much further on that, let's get back to Fireflight here and look at his accessories. He doesn't have very many. He just comes with 2 guns. And as you can see here, he does have a double barrel on his gun, just like the 1986 original does. And it does retain many of the design elements. Sorry about that, trying to drop the gun again. It maintains a lot of the design elements from the original gun, so that is nice that they did take the time to look at that. And the guns are identical, so there isn't anything fancy to look for with that. Now if you'll just give me the other gun, thank you. We can then now take a look at Fireflight's articulation. You can turn his head from side to side, and it can rock up and down. It is on a ball joint. His arms can be raised up about so far, and they do rotate at the shoulder all the way around. Although you do have to watch, there is some kibble at his side, so you'll have to move the arm a little bit. He has double jointed elbows, mainly used for transforming him, but it's still nice. And he does have a swivel at the bicep, so he has G.I. Joe battle grip. He can be twisted at his hips. You can spread his legs apart into a full splits. He does have a thigh cut. It is rather massive due to the plain kibble. You can raise his leg at the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee 90 degrees. So, all in all, he does have the standard articulation for a deluxe class transformer. Alright, we're going to transform Fireflight, and it's pretty similar to what it was for Slingshot, since he's kind of uses some of the same methods. I think Air Raid also had similar ones too. But at any rate, we start by turning the head around. And then you can fold the option, and you can have the option of folding down the landing gear. You're going to rotate his arms at the elbow all the way around. So that way when we turn him around, we'll bend the arms up at the elbow. Just like that. And we come around, bring the arms up to his shoulders, and then fold them downwards so they fold into the side. There we go. Just like that. There is a post there on the side, and it should line up with a hole in his arm. There we go. Doesn't make any noise when it presses in, but you'll feel it. There we go. We got that in. And then now here on his back, we fold out the cockpit section, and then fold this whole piece down so that it should cover his head just like that. Come down here, and we can merge his legs together like so. Then we open these covers up on the front of his legs, because we're going to fold his legs down and in, and then we close them up. And of course, once that's done, we fold down his feet. Come around here to the back. Fold down the tail pieces. They should have stayed together. It popped apart when I folded it down. If you had the tail fin folded over, you lift it up now, and then you fold down the wings. And then there you have it. He is in his airplane mode, which is meant to represent an F4 Phantom, which is exactly what his Generation 1 version was. And it is nice that they maintained most of the sticker detail that was on the original toy, while adding some new stuff like the striping here on the back of the plane. Plus, he also now can carry his guns. You just flip him over, attach the guns to the bottoms of the wings. And then there we have it. And of course, Fireflight swooshes pretty good. So all in all, it is a very nice looking toy. Now, and here's where I get the notion that he's an arm. It's right here on the instructions. So pretty much it's why he follows a similar pattern of transformation to Slingshot. That way it's similar to mount him onto Superion. But I'll drop you an early hint. It's a pain in the butt. We'll cover that when we deal with making Superion a little later in the year. So right now we get to my thoughts. Just like with Mixmaster earlier, I do love the improvements that were done here on Fireflight. The articulation is considerably better. The detailing is a lot nicer as well. Since, I mean, look here on the cockpit for the paint applications. They painted in not only the silver paint there for the windows, but they also put this dark gray detailing on there. You look here at the original. It doesn't have that. They just painted the whole cockpit silver. And as you can see, there's a little wear on mine, but he's from 1986. This was mine from when I was a child. He's in pretty good shape for one that old. The extra detailing is certainly a nice touch. And all in all, it also does look a little better. The plane mode, it does look a little boxy, I'll give it that, especially looking at it from this angle. It is a little bit boxy, but they're also taking more creative liberties with it since they don't want it to get the licensing to make him look more like an F4. And I can live with that, really. He's supposed to be made from an alien space transport. That's at least what the cartoon showed. The Aerialbots were made from spaceships on Cybertron. The Autobots modified them to look like Earth airplanes before having Alpha Trion and Vector Sigma give them life. But all in all, I do think this is a nice representation of the character. And that's my review of the Age of the Primes release of Fireflight. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you love the content we feature on this channel, we would appreciate some likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. YouTube in the last year has changed its algorithm. They are wanting to make sure that the viewers are engaging as much as they are watching. So if you do love our content, we would appreciate all the feedback we can get. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.